Okay, people. So I am joined today by Alexander Jeffrey, who is the director and writer of um oh my god. You have no idea. Ah, god damn it. My memory is just terrible. Sorry about that, Alexander.
No, you're good. You're all good. All good.
Thank you for joining me, man. Really
Oh, thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me. This is awesome.
No worries, man. So this is your first feature-length documentary, if I'm correct.
It is, yeah. I do mostly narrative stuff. So like I do a lot of narrative shorts, done a couple narrative features, and never really thought I would do a documentary, but here we are.
Yeah. So how did this come about?
Yeah. So Paul Burns, who is Evan's stepfather, and for those listening, Evan is the gentleman with autism who we sort of follow in the film. You have no idea. So Evan's stepfather, Paul Burns, wanted to make a birthday video for his wife Beth, who's Evan's mom, and uh, as a way to sort of thank her for all of the work that she had done with Evan through the years. And so he wanted to do this like 30-minute birthday video where we got all of her friends on camera telling the story, but it was a surprise to her, so she wasn't to be interviewed or to be a part of it. And I'd known Paul and Evan and Beth for over 10 years at that point, and um, as we were kind of doing these interviews with her friends, I was like, holy shit, this story is incredible. And Paul and I kind of talked, and we thought, like, okay, after the surprise, after the birthday video, we really need to approach Beth about doing this as a full-blown feature-length film, because the story's so powerful that there's very little that we could do to screw it up. So that was kind of our goal. The goal in the making of it was to just stay out of the way and not screw up the story that was already so great. So yeah, that's kind of how it fell into my lap. It came to me. I didn't approach this and find, or didn't come to this with any kind of an agenda. It was just like a friends of the family, and they've really become like a second family to me through the making of this movie.
Right, right. Yeah, I thought this was really interesting. Like I had no clue what it was going in. And at first you're like, you I don't know, it was this story about all of this love and determination, but it's like, well, surely that's what everyone does, right? This is why this story. And then you remember when this happened, right? So this happened at a time when there wasn't the knowledge there is now. There wasn't the resources there is now, which then you're like, oh my god, this is
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And
It's
so it just builds like that.
totally, and time's an important factor in the documentary, but also place. Like, so, El Dorado, Arkansas, being such a small town in southern Arkansas, like even even the limited information that they had in New York City at that time, El Dorado would have had far less than that.
Mm.
And it's even like pre Google, pre any like to do research on her own. Beth had to like go to the library and check out a book, or go hear Temple Grandin speak in Las Vegas, and that was like really how they started to figure out what autism even was, because it wasn't like Beth says in the documentary, if she had heard the word autism, it might have been once or twice in her entire life, and it was not part of her sort of regular vocabulary.
Mm. Mm. Which I think, as I said, like a big thing for me with this film is community and love,
Totally.
right? And I think it's interesting because they are from such a small community, right? And a lot of times, small communities can be very closed off,
Hmm.
right? They're not always very diverse. So, especially at a point when there isn't the knowledge around autism and disabilities, but this community just opens up their arms, which is such a wonderful thing. You're watching this and you're just thinking, God damn, this is great. Right. And I think that's the huge thing that just jumps off, like how all of these people answered the call. And
Mhm.
that's it's such an incredible thing. And I think regardless of gender, race, ability, this story will resonate with everyone, I feel.
Oh, that
Like,
means a lot.
yeah, I mean, when you're doing the birthday video, right? What was your vision for the story? So you thought this is a great story to tell, but
Mhm.
what was the vision? Where did you think this would go? Who this was for?
Well, when we were doing the birthday video, I mean, the audience was sort of one, and it was Beth, because it was just a way for her to feel seen. And so, but it was kind of like our rehearsal for the film, like the real film. And um, I think because we did that sort of rehearsal process of making the birthday video, we got to sit with the story for a long time and think about creative ways to tell it. And also with the birthday film, it was strictly interview based, so we didn't have any sort of just real life moments with Beth and Evan, obviously. And so
Mm,
we knew we wanted to do that, and COVID happened to be flaring at the time, and Evan had moved out of his um, group home that he lives in, and was living with Beth and Paul because his immune system, as you know from watching the
yeah.
movie, is he's very, very at risk. And they were about to start that process of transitioning him back to his group home, and we thought that would be a great sort of container for the film. And so that was kind of like a kicked it into high gear immediately, because we're like, we've got to sort of get this footage and follow this process, um, because that is, that'll be a moment where Beth tells him a story, takes him through the whole process of how they communicate, and we thought that would be a really interesting thing to capture. So at
Mm.
the very beginning, when we were shooting that footage, like, we didn't even have the official green light on making the full documentary. It was literally me and Paul Peterson, who's my business partner and best friend, and both of us shooting, and our friend Richard, who's in the documentary, is Evan's godfather, him running sound. He's never run sound before.
Right,
And so it
right.
was just the three of us in this kitchen, like, because we were all part of their bubble, and we were shooting this footage, and without really official green light to make the thing. But as we were kind of stewing on it, like with the lights on the stage at the art center, and the sort of structure with the VHS tapes and that kind of thing, we had time to really think about this story and how to tell it. And we didn't. I'll be honest, like, we didn't have a clear, perfect vision going in by any means. So much of it was discovered in post too, um,
Okay.
as we were playing with how to best piece this together. We sort of knew all the beats from the birthday video of this is the order of the story, but the order of
Mm.
the story isn't that interesting just sequentially. So we were trying to figure out cool ways to mix it up, and bring the past and the present together and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, okay. Now you just mentioned it, and I thought it was genius, right? The videotape framing device.
Mm.
Like it was like these little chapters, like these little vignettes, and you see the tape going, and then it be the title on the tape. How did that come about? Because I thought that was such a great way to kind of help tell this story and make it so engaging.
Well, thank you so much. The that came like super late in the editing process, and it was like we were looking for that thing to tie it all together. And I remember Paul Peterson came into my office, and he was like, I feel like we need to do something with VHS tapes. And I'd kind of been thinking the same thing. And he was like, what if we do like fast forward, pause, fast, like that kind of stuff, just the sort of graphics on the screen. And I was like, I feel like that's been done. I think it's cool. Like, it's a cool device, but I want to do something more like tangible too. And Evan, obviously VHS tapes are such a huge part of his
Mm.
life. And so we almost thought it would be cool, as if like you don't know who's putting in the VHS tapes and that kind of thing. But like, what if that's Evan and he's the one like kind of going through these chapters and that kind of thing. So it was actually my hand in the video, just because we were in Evan's bedroom, and I think he was
Yeah.
actually away while we were shooting that. But yeah, we wanted to really kind of do more than just the typical fast forward rewind graphics, and that's sort of where we landed.
Right, because yeah, it just seems so perfect. Because I think it was early on we learned that he's got a love of film,
Yeah.
right? And then the fact that he was making notes in his book as well about Dennis,
Hmm.
right? And so it just felt, oh yeah, of course this would happen, right? This is perfect. This really fits into everything we've learned so far. So it was just this perfect way to, you know, in and out of this story, because as you say, it's non-linear in the way
Right.
you've kind of told it. And so if you've just got a load of talking heads and it's just like, well, this happened. Oh, and by the way, this happened. But it look, the story would always be interesting,
Right.
but it would feel a little disjointed. But this just really brought it all together wonderfully.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's like one of those things that feels so obvious now, but at the time, sometimes the most obvious things are just staring you in the face, and you're like blindly like, "What can we do?" Yeah,
Mm.
it very much felt like a perfect fit in hindsight. We were like, "This, duh!" Like we should have thought of this from the beginning, but it did come very late in the process, and I'm thankful that it did. Um, it's one of those things.
Hey, well, that's really, it's great to hear. And I'm sure other filmmakers are going to be like, okay, you don't have to have the ideas from the giddy up. Because I
Yeah, yeah,
think because watching this, right, you'd assume, oh, yeah, this was probably in the planning. They thought, okay, we're going to do this and bum, bum, bum. Because it just, as I said, it all just feels so natural. So knowing it came so late, right, and you just saying that, right? Because I don't think everyone always wants to admit these things, right?
sure,
It's
sure,
just like,
sure.
oh, from the beginning, we had this vision and blah, blah, blah. You know what I
No,
mean? So I think it's very useful to filmmakers to understand and know this, right? That you don't need everything at the start. It will come together at some point, right? You'll get that flash and be like, oh, this is how we're going to do it. Perfect.
yeah, no, it definitely was the creative process definitely unfolded in a very, you know, interesting and unique way for us. Like I, we talked about at the very beginning, this is my first doc ever, so I'm also trying to figure out how to make a documentary. I mean, because like in narrative, like there are of course discoveries in post and things you change in reshoots and all that kind of stuff. But like doc, it's like you don't have a script, or at least we
Mm.
didn't have a script going in, and so it was just and it was kind of fun in that sense. It was very creative. The whole process was creative. It never felt like we were tied into a screenplay or one thing, one idea.
Mm. Yeah, I can imagine that would be, a different way of doing things and
Yeah.
intriguing. But what made you think you can do a documentary?
Probably just pure brash stupidity. I don't know. I've always been like somebody who's like, yeah, let's figure it out. That's just me, I guess. But I mean, first and foremost, I love the family, and and again, I felt this incredible sense of responsibility. I think to tell their story well, because it affected me so much hearing it that I wanted other people to feel that. So I don't know. I didn't. It didn't scare me because we do like corporate videos and interviews all the time. That's just kind of
Mm.
bread and butter for Paul and I at our company Bespoke, because we have to make money and make a living, and that's kind of the stuff that helps us pay the bills. So we've done the talking heads and we've done that kind of stuff, but I think I just felt like so close to all these people that I wasn't intimidated by the idea of sitting down and like talking to them about their story. That didn't scare me. I think what scared me was getting it right, like not
Yeah.
not screwing it up.
Mm, mm. And another thing that I found really intriguing and engaging was a lot of the conversations with Evan, because you did it in a room with all of these colored lights and
Yeah.
light shades. And I think there's a part at the beginning when they're talking and he went to the school as a kid. Um,
Mhm.
and it seemed that he had a kind of a connection to color that helped in
Mhm.
the kind of whole communication journey. And so I was wondering, was that the reason for that room, or was it more of a visual, um, you know, component?
I think the color actually kind of happened by accident again. A happy, stupid accidents on set. The room with the lights. So there's kind of two reasons we did that. One was it actually takes place on the stage at the South Arkansas Art Center, and that's where Evan's dad performed, and that's where Beth was the executive director. So that place has a
Oh,
super deep connection to the family and to the film. So we wanted to shoot something there, and I thought the lights could sort of be my interpretation or a visual interpretation of perhaps like Evan's mind, like like different lights coming in different places and bringing in like just kind of this cool sort of visual component to it. But then as our gaffer was, he had all these lights hanging, and he had the app on his phone that could control all the different lights, and they're all
okay.
RGB.
Right,
And
right.
he accidentally switched one of them to a color, and Evan turned to the light and saw that it was blue and said BLUE, blue. And so we were like, we've got to film this. This is just too cool, because it also could represent different emotions throughout the film that he might be feeling. um, but that's just, again, happy accident. Like it was we and I'm just lucky that some of that stuff happened. I mean, that's when you, especially like, we didn't know what we were gonna, there was no guarantee that we would get anything with Evan. He, whether
Mm,
depending on how he was feeling that day, or but he was, he lit up with a camera around him. He's a lot like his dad Dennis, who
right.
was a big performer, and
Mm.
it was so funny because Beth wasn't sure what it was going to be like, having a documentary crew follow him around. And when we didn't show up or we weren't there, he was kind of like, "Yeah, what's going on? Like, why aren't these people filming my life right now? Because everything I do is super interesting and awesome." So it came very naturally to him. He's a movie star very naturally. I'll say that. He showed up to the festival with sunglasses on, waving at everybody. He got up on stage and joined us for the Q&A at one of the festivals. And about halfway through, he just said bye and walked off. He was done with the Q&A. So he's got the star thing down. I think he's pretty
Okay.
cool. Yeah.
I was wondering about that because I think Beth mentions that it can take him time to get used to people.
Yeah.
So it was just like, yeah, like how much time did you have with him to, get comfortable to be able to film all of this? Because we see so much stuff. Right, as you
You know,
said, he's going back to the group home, and we see this, and conversations with Beth, with Paul, and it's really interesting. And so it's that was the thought, like, how do they get this footage, right? What
yeah.
was this process? So you're saying he was pretty much good from the giddy.
Yeah, I don't want to like sound like I'm bragging or anything when I say this, but he warmed up to me really quickly, and I felt very honored and lucky. But he and I just had a very quick bond in the making of this. And in the early days of shooting, um, we would show him stuff on the screen, because the camera has like the screen on the top of
Yeah.
it. So we shoot a little bit, hit playback, let him watch, and he was just like pumped, because again, he loves movies, so seeing himself
Mm.
in a movie was just the coolest thing, I think. And
Oh,
so
sure.
so it was he would go up to his Beth and Paul and say, if we weren't there, he'd say movie star, and that meant, why aren't they filming me right now? And he loved it. And it's like every time we see, like, my wife and I went over to their house pretty recently, and I guess they had told him that we were coming, and we pulled up, we walk in their front yard, and like go to the front door and realize that Evan is sitting on the porch to the left on the swing waiting for us, like outside. And he's just like cuts up, gives us a big hug. Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, honestly, like feel so lucky that he's part of my life now.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So you still, yeah, you still see him and you
Oh
still,
yeah,
talk to everyone. That's great.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
man. It's a story you don't know that you need to see. That's the crazy thing about this. It's just like it just seems, yeah, like, well, what could be compelling about this? But
yeah.
so much is compelling. And just when you're seeing, Beth, and it's just that tenacity. And I think
Mhm.
the other thing I thought was really interesting was when she said, when the school told her, it, can't be in a group class. She didn't blame them,
Right.
right? She's just like, look, that no one knows what to do, right? And
Yeah.
some of the information they gave her was good information, but it was just like no one knew what to do. And so, but once she pushed and everything just fell into place and they worked with her to do all of this. And then there's the first step program, just all of these incredible things that were done. It's incredible. It's an
Yeah.
incredible story.
I think I've learned so much from Beth in the making of the movie, and I think I think first of all, you'd mentioned the community earlier and how they all showed up, and I think having been around Beth through this process and obviously knowing her beforehand, like when you're around her, like she expects the best from you without her ever having to say that. It's very weird.
Mm.
Like you just want to be better when you're around her. So I think people show up for her because of that, and I think like you said, she didn't go in with this like screw you mentality. Like I'm going to do what I'm going to do. It was like this is what's going to happen. You're telling me something different. You're not wrong, but we got to make progress here. And
Yeah.
I really respect the way that she deals with people, and her interpersonal skills are just incredible. And yeah, definitely. I mean, she's paved the way in the community in so many different facets. But
Mm.
yeah, it's been really cool to just learn more about what everything that she's done, because it's a long list.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I think it's just the expectation that she has, right? She's like, I don't care how much time you can give,
Yeah,
but just as long as the time you do spend is quality time, right? You're
yeah,
not on your spending it on looking on your phone. You're not just it's not lip service. You're there to engage and do something, right?
yeah.
And it's just like with the kids, all us one time, just one time a year,
Hmm.
right? It's not like I come every month, every other month. It's once a year. So the ask is never a huge ask, which is
Yeah,
kind of crazy. It's just when you do it, do it. Don't mess around. No half stepping. And I think that when someone comes with that kind of frankness, you'll do it because
yeah.
it's not going every week, no, it's just like once is fine, but just be here. If you turn up.
Totally. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think, when we were having dinner in their kitchen before we kind of started this process, and we were talking about like, well, what do we hope to achieve with this documentary? It's that maybe somebody sees it and they go like, they have a kind of a holy shit moment of, I maybe know a Beth and an Evan or somebody in my life, and I can make a huge difference by showing up for an hour. And
Mm,
like just having that, like that light turn on, that was kind of one of the things that we said, okay, if we can achieve that, that would be a successful documentary. And in telling the story, because Beth, again, she wants to, and she's become the person that people reach out to and ask questions to in El Dorado, of course, and then probably in South Arkansas. And so, with making this, that was one of the goals.
yeah, yeah. You know, w- what do you do with it now? Right? Because you're doing the festival circuit.
Yeah.
Um, and because I'm sure you're looking for some sort of distribution deal somewhere, but I kind of feel that this is such a great resource that, getting played in schools, universities, just community groups, right? It doesn't even have to be an autism group, right? I
Right.
think any sort of group, this shows that there may be barriers, but and perseverance, communication, and community can do wonders in overcoming those barriers. And I think anyone watching this will, be able to take away so much. It will really galvanize people to be able to tackle something. So, do you think you'll be able to maybe get into those spaces?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're in the process of trying to figure out what does come next for the film in terms of getting the most eyeballs on it. Because I think that's our hope, is that a bunch of people see it, not for the monetary part of that, but for the, like you
Mm,
said, just the impact part of it. We have been, in addition to festivals, one of the things that we've been doing kind of throughout this, festival run, is we've been hooking up with those groups in cities and doing individual screenings that are not festival related at all,
yeah,
that
yeah,
are, just in partnership with an autism organization, or we did one with the Temple Grandin School. We've done a couple here in Louisiana that are just non-festival related, and those have been probably our best screenings. I mean, just because it's not a filmmaking audience; it's an audience that is genuinely the most like fired up and impacted by the film. So those have
mm,
been really, really cool. And I know we want to do more of that. And I think part of the distribution plan will definitely be to get this into school somehow. And we just need to figure out how that works and how that happens.
yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah, maybe local authorities, contact.
Yeah.
Well, though I say local, but yeah, it's different. The structure is different in the US than it is here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know, like, there's like education groups, like groups that monitor all the universities or all the colleges, and so you kind of would approach them. But yeah, you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. We
but
did.
oh, sorry, man.
No, I was just gonna say, like, once it's available, like we got to figure out some songwrite stuff and that kind of thing, because the festival we have festival rights to all the stuff that's in the movie.
Right, right.
But then there's the rights beyond
Mm,
that for distribution and all that kind of stuff. But if we can get a distributor that wants to work with us, and we talk about the schools and that kind of thing, because I think, like, uh, I mean, not only just the sort of grassroots word of mouth for the film, that would be a great resource for it, but I think it would be really an impactful tool for those organizations and schools. Yeah, 100%.
oh, for sure, man, definitely. Um, Another thing I was interested about, like, how did the because you talk to so many people, right? So how did that work? How did you? Because I'm sure, right, the way Beth and Paul and Evan have impacted the communities. I'm sure so many people would have been down to have a conversation. So how did you decide to navigate that part of things?
Yeah, it's a great question. There was certainly people that Beth wanted us to talk to. In terms of when we did the birthday video, like, we didn't. It was all El Dorado based because we just didn't have the budget to kind of travel and that kind of thing.
Mm,
Um, so there was a lack of representation from the females in her family, like Sydney, and then Evan's sisters, Caroline and Grace. And so that it was super important to us and to Beth that those interviews be captured, and especially, like, the people, Richard and Mary Pat, sort of, when we were doing the birthday video, were really good at telling the story, and they always kind of felt like the glue that we could come back to in the birthday
yeah.
video. So they were kind of on the list from the beginning. And but when we interviewed Beth, I mean, that was just like, okay, we could literally just have you on camera the whole time. She's just so good. But you know, I think it was important to us to like really interview the people that were kind of there through a lot of it. You know, because a lot of people, you know, like Evan's teachers and certain people that worked with him along the way were there for a section of the life. And we definitely wanted to get some of that and pepper that in. But it was, you know, in setting up sort of the main interviews, it was like people who were there and are still there. And, you know, it's such a community and family driven story. And I think Beth really wanted her family to feel seen because she
Mm.
felt so lucky and you know, blessed that they stepped up for her, and she really wanted to make them feel seen and appreciated.
Yeah, I think when you were speaking with to Evan's brothers and sisters, right? I think with that, you know, that kind of thing, sometimes it can just sound a bit like, oh, these are the words that I'm expected to say,
Right.
right? But it all felt so genuine, right? You could feel the love that everyone has, and just a yeah, of course I would come. Like, you don't even
Yeah.
have to ask me. That's like, wait, why are you asking me this question? That's so fucking stupid. Like, he's my
Yeah.
brother, and
Yeah.
that really comes across, and it's great. Like, how were those conversations? Like, and you know, with all of these people who might not have done this kind of thing before, like, how many cuts did all of this kind of take?
You know, like Evan's brothers and sisters were super natural on camera, and I think like even Caroline, who's I guess more like shy most of the time, like I think she just lit up when she was talking about Evan. Because he really is that like such a special person in her life. They had a huge bond, and you know, Grace and Kenny are they're naturally extroverted, like Paul Burns. They're not a very shy family. They're you know, they were all very comfortable, and I know Evan's brother Kenny, and I've known him for quite a while, so there was a comfort there. And again, like I think I'm not saying this to my own horn, but I think because it was me and because I have a relationship with the family that predates this, and I wasn't going to this family and saying, "Hey, can I make a movie about your life?" It was very much like, "Hey, we're in this together. Let's like sit around. Is this the right thing to do? Will this be okay for Evan? You know, do I really want to put all of my stuff on the big screen? You know, because I still commend Beth to this day that you know this was not the obvious or the safe thing to do. This was, I think, incredibly brave for her to just bare her soul to the world. You know, again,
Oh,
she didn't
sure.
have any intention to make a documentary about her life, but I think it was just a group decision that this was the thing to do.
Mm.
And I think because of that there was never any like tiptoeing or shyness or anything like that. It felt very easy. And I think people feel very passionately about Beth and Evan. And I think that they opened up and poured out when they got to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, would oh, yes, sorry.
No, you're good.
Dennis,
Yeah,
right? Because I think you know you have a guess at what's happened,
sure.
but we don't get the full story really until maybe halfway through, three quarters of the way through.
Yeah.
What was the decision on that placement of that part of the story?
I mean, I think Dennis was such an important figure in my life that I thought that I basically divided the story into two sections, and that was before Dennis and after Dennis. And we even set up the interviews that way. So we interviewed Beth up to Dennis's passing, and then we changed location and outfit in a totally different day and did the rest of the story that way. And that was something that was there from the beginning because I felt like Dennis just has this presence, even though he's not interviewed, he has this presence in the story that is so resonant that we had to do something special
Yeah.
there. And I think that was always built into it. And yeah, so I like actually Dennis would have been the first person from the family that I knew because I as a kid I watched him on stage at the art center performing, and he was one of those people that like you and I think probably a lot of people say this in community theater and that kind of thing, but I genuinely believe that if he would have went to Broadway, he might have made it. And he just had this charisma and this light. And I actually wrote my essay to get into college, to go to theater school and film school, about Dennis and
Oh,
how
right.
he, was an actor that I aspired to be and admired. And so like that part of, again, like that, I had this kind of like personal connection to that material, that part of the story, because it was so impactful in my life as well. And like, again, seeing Evan being such a performer is just super cool. Yeah.
Mm. Oh man, it really does sound like this was meant to be, and you were the perfect person to tell this story, Alexander. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Unfortunately, time is you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
against
Hey,
us, man.
hey, I hear you.
Right. But before we sign off, right, let the people know um where they can follow you and how they can watch this documentary.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Alexander Jeffrey, Jeffery, kind of a weird spelling, and we have a screening coming up at Dances with Films in Los Angeles. We're super excited. This is our West Coast premiere. It's a huge opportunity for the film to have a screening in Los Angeles, and we really, really hope people will come see it. We're July 1st at 2:45 Pacific time, and thrilled about the opportunity and really excited for the screening.
Great stuff. Yes, people, all the links will be on the website, so make sure you go there. The ticket link will be there, so buy your ticket and follow Alexander and crew so you can find out, firstly, where else you can see this, secondly, on what else they'll be working on. So,
Yeah.
do you have any other projects in the box ready to go?
So I've helped produce a horror film back in October called The Fetch, and we're currently in post production on that. It's horror's not really my thing, but this one is really special, and it has a lot of heart and drama built into it. That is the reason that I fell in love with it. And so I'm a producer on that, not a director. My friend Colby, who's a brilliant director, is the guy, and I have a film called Addie and the Lightning Bugs, which is a short film about a little girl who sees her brother's spirit in the lightning bugs in their backyard. And that's a short that's playing the festivals right now with Kaylee Fleming, who people would probably know as Judith from The Walking Dead or as young Rey from Star Wars The Force Awakens. But I'm hoping to make that into a feature next year. That's kind of my thing that I'm working towards.
Okay. Well, Alexander, hey, you are welcome back to talk about those and any other future project, man.
Oh,
So
thank
please,
you.
yeah, come back, man. We'd love to
Oh,
hear even more from you.
would love it. Thank you so much. You're an awesome interviewer, and this has been a pleasure.
I'm glad it was a good experience for you, man. And I really appreciate your time, man. And
Thank you.
yeah, just an incredible documentary.
Thank
I yeah, look, it's not just for just sitting in front of me, but it was so compelling. And I
you.
just, I didn't know that I really wanted to watch this, right? But you just find yourself just engulfed by it all, right? You don't want to turn away. You're just like, this is so fascinating, and you're so with this family to win. So yeah, thank you for bringing that
Oh,
to myself and everyone, man.
that means a lot. I will pass that along to the family. Thank you.
Hey, all the success with it, man. All the
Thank you.
success.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, man.
See ya.
All right.